Hello and welcome back to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Mayer, and I am thrilled to have you join us for another exciting episode. Before we dive in, don't forget to check us out at manufacturingculturepodcast.com and connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, even TikTok, but that's just videos, for more fantastic content. Today, we have a powerhouse guest who embodies the true spirit of manufacturing and personal resilience. Please welcome Shae Eichele, the marketing coordinator from the HEH Group and the dynamic host of the Manufacturing Muscle podcast on YouTube. Shae's journey in manufacturing is as inspiring as it is impactful. Growing up in an industrial family, she was surrounded by manufacturing leaders and hard workers from a very young age. Despite her initial dream of becoming an attorney, a life-changing injury set her on a different path. With the support of her family and a leap of faith, Shae entered the world of manufacturing and has been making waves ever since. You literally can't shake a stick and not see her somewhere. At the HEH Group, Shae works tirelessly to promote machine tools, turnkeys, metrology equipment, and more. But it's not just about the machinery, but it's the people and the stories behind them. Shae's passion for building muscle in the gym led her to create the Manufacturing Muscle podcast, a platform dedicated to strengthening the muscle of America, our manufacturing industry. Shae aims to change perceptions through her podcast, share relatable stories, and motivate listeners to consider manufacturing as a viable and sustainable career path. Shae believes that the people within our industry have mental muscle, and their stories can inspire us all to pursue our goals. So get ready to flex your manufacturing muscles as we converse with the incredible Shae Eichele. Let's bring strength back to our industry and discover the power of resilience and dedication. Shae Eichele, welcome to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
Jim, what an intro. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And thanks for having me on. Every time I get the opportunity to do a podcast and tell my story and just talk with amazing people like you in the industry, it reminds me more and more of why I love manufacturing. So thank you.
Well, I'm very happy to have you here. You're very welcome for the intro. I think I told you when we were on your podcast, that's my favorite part. Like, I could not ask questions and just read intros about people all day long because I love that part of it. Shae, you've had an amazing journey in your career, in your life. Tell us about this story. I didn't know that you wanted to be an attorney, so that was new information for me. Tell us about your story and share some of the yep, pivotal moments in your history.
Yeah, sure. So I tell the story, I feel like a lot, but every time I tell it, there's a part that I'm like, oh, I didn't really talk about that part last time. So I'm just going to go from front to end. But
Awesome.
so when I was really young, as soon as I could remember, my dad and I was watching football on Sundays, and we are a football family. My dad and I, Browns fans, all my Browns fans out there. Let's
Browns.
Super Bowl this year. So yep, Browns fan,
Okay.
and
Okay.
loved football. So I'm one of four girls in my family, and I was like, you know what? I want to do something in football. I want to be a sports agent. And
Uh,
so to be I was dead set on being a sports agent. No one could tell me otherwise. My mom and my dad would always tell me, what about like video, communication, production, journalism, just because I love being on camera and talking to people. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm going to be a sports agent. And yeah, I was pretty dead set on that. So then
wow.
when I was 16, I actually started working in a criminal defense office for an attorney. His name is Jay Crook. Awesome
Wow.
man, gave me an incredible opportunity to really get into law and learn and be a part of these different processes and understand what it's like to be an attorney. And although I figured out relatively quickly I didn't want to be in criminal law, it still didn't quite steer me away from contracting.
Okay.
So I still worked for him all the way through high school. And after high school, I graduated with my associate's degree and diploma in high school because I wanted to fast track and get myself to law school in and out and get a job as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So I go to Cleveland State. I graduated from high school in 2017, and I go to Cleveland State starting in the fall of 17. And in the time of, it was January 10th of 2018, I had a major cheerleading accident and got dropped out of a stunt, and anything that could have blown out from, my in my ankle and my knee down, not my knee, but below my knee and down, went. It was a very devastating injury, and we
Mhm.
did not know at the time the very significant long-term effects that this injury had on me. And so I went
Yeah.
and had a major leg reconstruction. My subtalar joint got fused. I had what's called a Watson Jones ligament procedure, which is a very old time ligament procedure for people who just completely blow out their ankle.
Oh
And they really
man.
only do it on like the most intense types of injuries. And so at that point, my doctor had let me know that this was what we needed to do to fix my ankle so I could live a somewhat normal life. So on March 14th of 2018, I underwent that surgery. I was in a cast for a long time, and then again in December 21st of 2018, I had another surgery to go in there because I was casted for so long. I had all this scar tissue built up. I couldn't move my foot. It was like my scar was growing off of my skin. I was in so much pain trying to go through therapy. So I had a second surgery to then clean that up. This all seems unrelated, but it all gets, kind of ties in together. So
Yeah.
once I was finally out of all my casts, so that was 2018. This was maybe like mid point of 2019. I tried to
Okay.
start walking and I couldn't. I mean, my foot felt like the day that it was broken. It felt like it was still torn ligaments and problems and nothing. So I go to the doctor and they tell me, you're orthopedically, you're healed. So I think you just went through a really, really tough surgery and you need to recover from that. So, setting aside the injury for a second, I took on that mindset. I did what I had to do, did all the therapy, went to the gym. I did everything they wanted me to and some. And then
Sure.
it came to graduation at Cleveland State. I graduated. And because I was so young, my parents had said, before, you're dealing with this injury stuff. And before you maybe go to law school, you're only 20, you just turned 20 years old. Why don't you take a gap year and go work for a contracting firm to see if it's something that you like? So that was some of the best advice that I've ever gotten. And I'm so thankful that my parents guided me not only to do my associate's degree in high school to save money, but also to take that year and see if it's something that I like before I go spend all that money on law school.
Sure.
So, sorry, this is a little bit of a long story, but
I
when
asked for it.
when during that gap year, the problems with the ankle continued. My foot would just randomly turn purple and get so big I could barely even put shoes on, or I couldn't wear, like, women, if you're listening, I couldn't wear leggings because the clothes were too tight on my leg. It would make my foot swell huge and I'd be in so much pain. Or like I couldn't lay my foot under a blanket because the pressure of the blanket hurt my foot so bad. So the people that I worked
Wow.
for were amazing. They were, I was dedicated to that job at the contracting firm. But they were awesome in terms of, really trying to give me the flexibility needed to figure out what was going on. So ultimately, I ended up getting a second opinion on the ankle and found out that I had a nerve disorder, if you will, called complex regional pain syndrome, CRPS for short.
Wow.
Doctor had let me know that it was basically too late to reverse it. And he kind of gave me a treatment plan of what he thinks was going to happen. And he was dead on, what ended up happening. So, year goes by, I'm in treatments, still going to work, still have a full-time job, still live in an apartment, 2 dogs, boyfriend at the time, fiance now. Um, just trying to make it happen. Yeah, things trying to make it happen and do as much as I can. I figured out that I really did not like contracts. I was so bored.
Okay.
At the same time, I was trying to take the LSAT exam and I was just not doing good on it. Whether it was I didn't have time to study because I was in so much pain, or when I was at the test, my foot was throbbing. The one time I took the exam in a cast, like post surgery. And yeah, I think I was about 6 or 7 days post surgery when I
Oh
took
my
my
God.
LSAT for the second time. Yep. And my dad and my mom were like, Shae, you're not loving this contracting thing. You're you're not you didn't you don't like criminal law. You're in and out going through all this recovery. Like, let's think of something else. Let's sit down and just open our minds a little bit. And as you mentioned in the intro, I do come from an industrial family, which we can get into that story later, but it's my dad that's in manufacturing, and my grandpa and my great grandpa, they all come from manufacturing. And my dad had said, you love journalism and talking and communicating and learning about different things. We have an open position on our marketing team. Why don't you just meet with our marketing manager, Scott Mazon, see what he has to say, see if you're interested in it. It's really social media, and really social media based at the time. That's kind of what they were really looking for. My
Okay.
role has grown since then, but so I went in there. I had my suit on and my notepad, and I was ready to go. And Scott just absolutely blew me away with his knowledge and everything that he had said, and I hooked me right away. I mean, talk about a good marketing salesperson. He is. So, but I'm so thankful for that. And my dad showed me around the shop, and I just remember seeing robots move for the first time, and seeing actually what a hydromat is, because I've been hearing the word hydromat since I've been 3 years old. That was probably my first word. We always joke about that. Some people talk about that, and so seeing all those things really changed my life. And so I ended up starting at the HEH group in September 14th of 2020. Shortly
Okay.
after that, I ended up having a surgery to get a device implanted. And I like to tell this part, and again, I know I'm being long winded, but this part's really important because it really ties back to manufacturing. So, with the complex regional pain syndrome, I got a device implanted inside my body. I have 3 wires that wrap around my S1, my L4, my L5, and it connects to a battery. Okay, and the company that makes this technology is called Abbott. So if you ask anybody in my life up until November 15th of 2021, they would tell you I had a scooter. I couldn't walk. If I
Wow.
walked, I was limping like crazy. I did what I could to push through. I always went to work and I always kept fighting, but the walking just was not there. And the second I got this thing implanted, I could walk. And
Wow.
the the device is called the dorsal root ganglion stimulator, and I think I may have mentioned this. The company that makes it is Abbott, and
Yeah.
Abbott's a manufacturing company. So
Yeah.
not only did I find a passion through manufacturing separately, but then I saw how much of a significant impact manufacturing can have on somebody's life. And I think just that's just a really important piece of my story that I feel like I just recently put together. But
Got it.
manufacturing really saved my mobility and my long-term activity and my quality of life. And so I just really like to talk about that as well. So thank you, Abbott,
No, I love
for all
that.
the amazing things that you guys do
I
with
love that,
technology.
Shae. That's awesome. Um, do you use that? Because you do talk to a lot of young people in the manufacturing space. Do you use that story, or will you start, since you just kind of connected those dots, in telling that story and getting more young people involved in the industry?
Yeah. So because I've recently connected those dots, the students that I've talked to recently, I do, especially the people that have complex regional pain syndrome. I
Yeah,
like make that connection because I have some of the people in my circle that I talk to, and we lean on and support each other. And I'm like, hey, like, forget the CRPS stuff. I just want to let you guys know that like manufacturing saved my life. Like if you're looking for a career, so I even try and advocate it that way. And since I've made
that's
that
awesome.
connection, I've really been trying to do that, and I plan to put that in more of my efforts in helping kids getting to manufacturing even more. Now that I've kind of put those two things together.
No, I love that. I mean, because when we talk to young kids, right? It's connecting them to things that they love, right? And one of my guests in February talked about, talking to students in inner cities about how Air Jordans are made, right? Because that affects their lives, and how rims are made, right? You have this unique opportunity to really talk about how manufacturing saved your life and saved your mental well-being, and all, like, not only helps you walk, but the mental transformation that you must have gone through in overcoming that challenge has got to be phenomenal.
It was certainly a battle. Yeah, I definitely owe it to, the way that my parents raised me growing up, and to always be, mentally strong. And this might make me a little teary eyed, but just trying to be mentally strong and always trying to push past and know that today's today, tomorrow everything could change. And so my parents were really awesome in that support, my sisters, and the guy my fiance, I've been with him since I've been 15 years old. So he was a serious vital part in, overcoming mentally kind of what I was going through. At that point, we had moved out to our first apartment. And then all this was happening, and we were like an hour
Wow.
away from my parents. I'm like, oh, poor guy. Um,
Oh,
he was awesome. So I really owe it to my surrounding cast. Um,
that's amazing.
that got me through that. So yeah, now we're
That's
on
really
the other
amazing.
side and trying to do everything we can.
You made me tear up a little bit, Shae. That's just it's such a moving and touching a story and origin story, I guess, for you. Um, so you've taken your role at HEH Group. You started this podcast, Manufacturing Muscle. I've been lucky enough to be a guest on your podcast. You have some amazing guests. You talk about bringing the strength back to American manufacturing. Tell us about that passion, because this is something that isn't necessarily part of your role at HEH Group, right? This is something that you did on your own and said, look, I'm going out there. I'm putting myself out there because this is what I believe in. Tell us about that journey to get to where you are with that.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, manufacturing muscle is separate from HEH. And because it's me on both sides, they kind of both benefit, so it's a little bit of a
Absolutely.
cross, but so some people are like, oh, okay. And I'm like, oh, it's actually separate. But anyways, so actually manufacturing muscle again started with my parents. So my dad had called me one day and he's like, hey, what do you think about like starting a podcast? Like starting a podcast and talking to people, talking to women about how they got into the industry and influencing young people to just try and get somebody to bite. If you can affect one life, we
Yeah.
always say that if you can affect one life, it doesn't matter. And so I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. So I kind of started putting thought into it, putting some thoughts together. And I think my whole goal with the thing really was if I could affect one person, right? So I wanted manufacturing muscle to open doors and opportunities for me to be able to be directly involved with marrying education and manufacturing. My goal was not to be YouTube famous or to blow up on LinkedIn. And of course, those things would be nice, right? Because then the podcast gets more views and,
Right.
hopefully that eventually comes along with it. But even just, so the development of manufacturing muscle, coming up with the name, I always say, I love muscle and I love manufacturing. So I put them together, manufacturing muscle. Then I realized, oh, wait, that has more of a meaning, right? Because I'm trying to
Sure.
get more young people into manufacturing, and manufacturing is the muscle of America, and we got to pump that up. So I started YouTubing how to be a podcast host. I was watching tons of different podcasts to try and get like a vibe. I was watching things in manufacturing. I was watching things in the medical industry. I was watching marketing stuff. I was watching bodybuilding stuff. I was watching just regular vloggers, like just trying to really develop maybe what I thought my on camera personnel would be for podcasting. And I just started it off. I called up Haley Hupp, who many people know, the marketing director at IQ Manufacturing, and I said, "Hey, like, will you be on the Manufacturing Muscle podcast?" She's like, "Yeah," and she was my first one, and we hit it off. And Tiffany Bryson also was a part of the first crowd, and
Yeah.
that's a whole nother story. I had a technological issue with her episode, and so we need to reshoot. So I'm waiting to do that because she's such an influence in my life. So I'm excited to have her on in the future. But that's kind of how it started, and I've been trying to do about 2 podcasts a month. So that's kind of what I've been maintaining, getting a lot of positive feedback. It's opened doors for me to get into high schools and start. We had a student day at the HEH group, so to bring students in, and it's been really great, and I'm excited to see where it goes here in
I
the
love it.
next year or so.
I love it. I love it. And yes, Tiffany's very hard to pin down. She was supposed to be part of this Strong Women in Manufacturing Month, and schedules did not align. I'll have her on at some point in the future as well. She's an amazing woman. She's part of the reason this manufacturing culture podcast exists. So she's really amazing. So now tell us about HEH Group. What do y'all do? I mean, robots, hydromats, right? Talk to us about that. But I also think I just saw something on LinkedIn today or this weekend, some new series you're doing for HEH. Tell us about
Yes.
that too.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I actually love talking about HEH because I'm going to steal my marketing manager's line. The HEH Group sounds like a real estate company, sounds like a finance company. We obviously were not very creative with our name calling. So let's just put that out there. But under the HEH Group, we have 4 different companies, and their names are much more known because we push the individual identity a little bit more than we do the group itself. But we've been starting to push the group itself a little bit more to show the strength of the group and kind of how it's one-stop shop. I don't like using that term, but it truly is. So
Yeah.
starting with Mach and Eichele. Mach and Eichele started in 1985 by my grandpa. Him and his partner, Eddie Mach, started Mach and Eichele strictly machine tool sales. Hydromat, well, Davenport at the time, and then it turned into Hydromat and more like high dollar value equipment. And then I believe it was 2008 or 2009 was when my grandpa retired and my dad, Willie, took over. So when my dad graduated high school, my grandpa had sent him to the Hydromat apprenticeship program in Missouri, and then he got right into manufacturing. So he'd been working for my grandpa, getting all that experience. And when my grandpa was ready to retire, my dad was able to step in. Well, one
Wow.
of the projects that my dad was helping a customer with prior to taking over the company required a special custom machine. And so he had got the contact name of a company called Ultratech. And Don Haggerty, Jim Haggerty, and Bob Haggerty. Don was the dad, and his 2 sons, Bob and Jim, they ran Ultratech. So he worked with them, and he was like, hey, I really kind of like these people. And when it was his time to take over Mach and Eichele, he wanted to grow the business and overcome that second generation, nothing's going to happen kind of thing that people talk about. And he was determined to grow the business. And so he ended up partnering with Ultratech. So then it was Ultratech and Mach and Eichele. So Mach and Eichele being the sales arm, selling machine tools. We eventually ventured into metrology and automation. And Ultratech is a
Okay.
builder. So we do custom and special equipment, turnkeys, automation cells, anywhere from collaborative to large scale industrial cells. We do rebuilds and retrofits and service and support. So that's kind of on the Ultratech side. In 2013, we bought a company called Kratz and Saunders. Van Kratz was the owner of that, and he unfortunately passed away. And his succession plan was he had that in place prior to his passing, and that is when Mach and Eichele and Ultratech acquired Kratz and Saunders. So that's the
Okay.
third company. So Kratz and Saunders is the distribution company, basically just like Mach and Eichele, but down south. So they cover North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia.
Okay.
Then in 2017, we started a spindle repair company called Advanced Spindle Technology, where we repair pretty much any type of spindle other than an air spindle. And we have 2 locations, one in Akron, Ohio, and another one in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So that's kind of the HEH group. On the
Wow.
sales side, we sell up north in Ohio for Mach and Eichele. It's Mazak, Meditoyo, Hydromat, Takamaz, and Fanuc CRX robots. And then down south, it's all those same brands plus Mitsubishi EDM or MC Machinery.
Okay.
Which, it's MC Machinery, and they import Mitsubishi EDM machines, and we sell those in our territory. So that's
Love it.
kind of the HEH group as a whole.
I love it. I love it. So next couple of questions I'm going to ask are because of the theme, right? So strong women. So let's start with the strong theme, the strength in manufacturing, right? You're a big believer, and we talked about it on your episode, or the episode that I was on with you, about the U.S. and how manufacturing really built this country and built the middle class. And so how do you think that we can really pump up that muscle again, right? What do we need to do to get back to where manufacturing has created another robust middle class in this country, thus creating economic prosperity for us?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I hope as I continue more and more in my career, this answer that I have becomes more and more robust, and that something can really take action. And I try to talk
Yeah.
to a lot of people in the industry that are older, that have been through when manufacturing was booming, to try and pick up on some things to like really formulate what I think could be a good viable way to get manufacturing back in as a career that people choose all the time. And I think one of the things that we're obviously facing is the gap, right? So like you have all these older people that have all this knowledge in their head, but because we slacked off or because manufacturing had a perception of what it was over time, that knowledge stuck in these people's heads and they never were able to transfer it down to anybody else.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, the only way to do it is to get young people back into manufacturing and get them in fast. And we need companies to be able to give students a chance. Like maybe not every student is going to work out, but we need companies to be, even though it may be a little more inconvenient to have to teach
Yeah.
somebody and shadow them and do all the things that you need to do long term, is that's how we're going to build it back up. Now, next question, right, is how do we get young people into the industry? I think it really starts in the schools. I've learned through some of the connections through manufacturing muscle that schools are not pushing manufacturing. They're
Right.
not. Their superintendents aren't. They do not. The colleges sold to them like a car salesman and walked them right into college, and that was it, right? And so then on
Yeah.
top of that, you're also trying to sell the parents too. The kids, they don't have a perception of manufacturing. And I shouldn't say every kid, I'm just going to say the kids that I've talked to, they don't have a perception of manufacturing because it's their parents that had the perception of manufacturing, or their parents that had a perception of
Yeah.
manufacturing. So the only way to get these kids interested in manufacturing is through education, knowing that it's an option. And it's not just an option for kids that don't want to go to college. I mean, I've been hearing lately, oh, I want to be an engineer. Okay, do you realize engineering is in manufacturing? So let's stop trying to separate the super smart kids from the kids that don't want to go to college and saying the kids that don't want to go to college can go to manufacturing. Mm-mm.
Right.
The salesmen, the people that are in business school can go into manufacturing. The people in marketing can go into manufacturing. The people in engineering can go into manufacturing. There's so many different ways, but we have to be able to penetrate the education system and get them. We have to sell to them harder than what the colleges do.
Yeah.
And if we're not willing to do that, I just don't think we're going to crack the code. And podcasts like yours, what I'm trying to do with manufacturing muscle, what people are doing by being on Instagram and stuff, I think kids are naturally starting to see it more because we're starting to be in spaces that they are, and they're starting to ask questions. When you
Yeah.
start asking questions, you have a curious mind, and curious minds hopefully will end up leading into manufacturing, because if they say, hey, mom and dad, I saw this really cool thing on the Manufacturing Culture podcast. They were talking about Air Jordans being in manufacturing. And then all of a sudden their parents like, oh, whoa, you brought that up? Okay, now let's have a conversation.
Right.
So I'm really good at long-winded answers, but a long-winded answer to say we got to be in spaces that they are. We need to take our time out and give kids opportunities and get in front of kids. And we have to put the effort into prospect towards the schools. And we need the schools to start opening their minds along with the parents that manufacturing is an incredible field to be in.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I the experiences that I've had is that we can reach these students, but it does come back to the parents a lot of times. But I'm going to go back to your origin story, Shae, right? You wanted to be an attorney. There was nothing your parents could do to change your mind, right?
Right.
So I guess my question to you on that is two parts. One, if we're starting to get into spaces where students are, where the young people are, how do we also get into places where their parents are? How do we start changing that perception of parents? Because I've done a number of like student parent nights. The parents don't show up. They just don't come. And I don't think that it's necessarily a lack of interest in their kids' future. I think it's they just still have this perception of manufacturing being dark, dirty, and dangerous. So how
Mhm.
do we reach the parents? Where are they? And I don't know the answer. This is maybe a rhetorical question. Do you know where they are? How do we reach them?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where they are and how to reach them, but I'm just going to defer to Mayfield High School in Northeast Ohio. They're doing a really great job of getting the parents, and what they're
Okay.
doing is Mayfield High School has a program called Learn and Earn. Great program. The short version is in the first semester they work with like SME products like Tooling U and products like that to get certain certifications. And in the second semester, they go work for companies and they do internships. So what they're doing is when they do tours of
Very cool.
facilities, the parents come with the kids. So if you have 20 kids in the class and you got at least if 90% of their parents can come and they walk through a company like Swedgelock, which is they make valves and all kinds of things. So they're in Solon, Ohio. They're going to
Mhm.
say, "Oh, whoa, this is not what I thought it was." And they will drive in and they see
Got it.
everybody drive in a nice car, and they drive in and they see the facilities really nice, and the parents see that things are clean, and they see that people are looking like they're happy. They're going to change that perception. So I don't know where the parents are at, and that's something that I definitely want to ask more questions about and get more in depth with, even just talking with parents. Like my cheerleader, I coach cheerleading and talk to parents like that. Hey, why not manufacturing? But I just think Mayfield's doing a really great job. And if you're a trade school out there listening to this, or you are a job shop or manufacturer, OEM, reach out to your local schools, get in touch with them, and ask. Students and parents are welcome to come into the building.
Will you introduce me to people there? Because I'd love
Yeah.
to pick their brain about how we can replicate that in Arizona, at least, if not in other places, because I love that idea. I think that's phenomenal.
It's great. And the other day, we had a student day at the HEH group at our Ultratech facility where we had students from the Mayfield School and then Chardon High School. They have a program. They don't do like, it's just set up different. It's a manufacturing focus. They do like circuits and different certifications that they can get throughout the school year.
Yeah.
But they were there, and it's just awesome seeing the teachers starting to get more passionate about it. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, no, I will definitely send along that contact. They would love to talk with you and get them in touch with anybody possible because they're so passionate about
Awesome.
this as well. And one of those students, um, I had seen him and I did a presentation at Mayfield High School, I think in like September maybe of last year. And then at the student day, the teacher had let me know that he got a job and he can pay for his own phone bill now. And mom
That's
doesn't have
awesome.
to worry about him anymore. And he's saving up for a car. And it's like, he's 16.
That's
And
awesome.
then the mom is like, "Oh my gosh, you're making $17 an hour to cut brass." Of
Right.
round of applause. You know what I'm saying? So
That's awesome.
it was just really neat.
That's really cool. I love that. And then my second question along this line is, how do we get kids so interested that they're like Shae Eichele when she wanted to be an attorney slash sports agent? Like, how do we ingrain that kind of passion into the young people? Because we do talk to young people, and we're doing a good job. I mean, in the last 5 years, I'd say I see more engagement with young people than I have in the previous 10 or 15 years, and it's sticking more. But I don't know if I've seen somebody have that kind of passion that you had about being a sports agent, right? Where you're like, no, this is it, right?
Mhm.
So I, I mean, is how do we do that with these young kids? How do we get them to that point where they're like, "This is it. This is my future career." Is it talking about Dunks and Jordans? Is it talking about implantables? Is it talking about connecting the things that they know? Is there something else that we're missing? What do you think?
If I'm being totally honest, if there is a kid out there like me that was so didn't matter what anybody said, blinders on, I personally, the only thing that would have broke me was failure, right? And that's what
Okay.
happened. So
Yeah.
I had the injury. I wasn't able to do well in the LSAT. And somebody like myself, who's very goal driven and wants to be successful and wants to be passionate about something, is going to say eventually say, I got to drop this and I got to find something else that I'm passionate about because we're goal driven. We want to be successful. We want to have a good life for ourselves. We want our parents to be proud of us. And I really think the only thing that would have broke that mentality um, was failure. And with that too, I think kids that are very focused on one thing as well, like myself. Another thing that would have probably helped me maybe bring down that barrier a little bit more, which my parents really started talking about, like when it was getting close to like, okay, we need to change things up. They start talking to me about numbers,
Uh,
right? Because if you're a very driven 18-year-old kid and you want to be successful, you do not want to hear that $50,000 equates to $2,000 a month and your loan payment after going to law school is going to be $700 a month and your car payment's going to be $400 a month and where's your money?
Right.
And so, somebody who is very driven and wants to be successful and in that way, I think bringing realities to them that way, like, hey, you think you're going to go make all this money being an attorney? Hate to break it to you. Let's look
Yeah.
at the statistics of how many people actually graduate law school. Let's look at the statistics of how many kids actually graduate law school and then go be an attorney. How many
Sure.
kids end up that way and then, police and law, they have the highest rate of addicts.
Right.
Why? The
Right.
stress, So those types of conversations I think they did affect me when it was time to make that decision, but it was kind of like those real hard facts plus the failure of the other component, if that makes sense. And I don't wish failure on anybody, but
No, no, no.
if I'm
Yeah.
being honest, I think those two things is what changed my mind. And if somebody doesn't have failure, at least maybe you can present them with some facts, and that may
Yeah.
be able to help them if they're really focused on being successful.
Yeah. No, I love that. How important, and the reason I'm asking you this question is because you're a lot younger than I am. So you are more in the young person's mind space. Uh, how important is it to the young people today to have mentors in the fields that they are looking at getting into, right? So you talk about the influence of your dad and Scott in your career and how important their mentorship has been, right? How important is it for us to be able to show the young people out there that there is a mentorship, right? This is a community. This is a an industry that while we compete, we all still take care of each other too, right? And that's one of the things that I love about this industry is we all care for each other, right? At a deeply human level. So how important do you think that is for young people to start stressing that community, that mentorship level that they could get coming into a career like manufacturing?
I think having a mentor is critical. Having people that you can look up to and ask questions to, and they've been 24, you haven't been 50, is to me, there's no better way to learn, avoid, obstacles. And if someone could say, hey, yeah, I done that, maybe you don't want to do that. Or, hey, I did this and this really helped. Or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My dad and Scott and Chris Miller, our VP down south, even my mom, who doesn't have anything to do with manufacturing. Well, she doesn't have anything to do with manufacturing, but she's married to my dad. So by default, she kind of knows about manufacturing.
It's indirect. Yeah,
It's
it's
exactly.
indirect.
I could just go on and on about the different mentors, Tiffany Bryson that I've had, that I
Sure.
really look up to, that have given me a lot of good advice, and that has allowed me to do things like get into my MBA program or add responsibilities in my role and things like that. Now, to young kids, I think young kids are having a harder and harder time having a relationship, having a professional relationship with older people because they're so used to this.
Ah, okay.
They're always in their phones. I
Yeah.
feel like they barely know how to have conversations with each other, let alone asking an adult of like maybe really high expect that intimidates them. Instead of that exciting them, that intimidates them. And I think if we
Yeah.
can find a way to bring down that barrier of intimidation, and like you said, this industry is like we all we're high-fiving and we want to see each other and we're meeting up at trade shows and we're doing podcasts, and it's such a welcoming industry. And I think showing them that welcomeness would really help bring down the intimidation level and allow them to open up and want to have somebody that's going to lead them. Part two to that is current influences in their life.
Mm.
I've been coaching since I've been 13, and one of my cheerleaders, and this is not the first time this has happened. One of my cheerleaders texted me the other day and said, "Hey Shae, do you mind? Could we meet for dinner one time? I'm going to be graduating high school, and I have no idea what I want to do with my life. And I look up to you and everything that you've done and what you built, and I just want to pick your brain." But it's because I had an impact on her at some point, and I don't say that
Right.
in any way at all as a bragging point, but it's for people like you and me and older people that are in the industry listening. Have an impact on these people, relate with them. Don't try and talk above their head, talk at their level, ask them questions, like get them comfortable, and then they'll start to look up to you and what you do, and create that real bond with them to where they feel like they can have that, because kids just aren't as outgoing, I feel like, anymore. It, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. It's kind of
Yeah.
weird, but they're just not quite as
No, I
go getting, and it's unfortunate. And I hope that turns around one day. But I think if we can lower the level of intimidation and allow them to feel like they have an importance, they're going to come out of their shell and
yeah.
want that mentorship. Um, yeah.
Do you think that part of that is us as an industry needing to meet them closer to where they are in their use of technology? I mean, if we started building, I mean, we talk about that transfer of tribal knowledge, or you
Yep.
talked about it earlier, right? If we started digitizing some of that knowledge that exists within people and really created a digital footprint of that, do you think that would draw more people, more of the younger people into the industry to really be able to say, okay, here's the knowledge. These are all the mistakes we've already all made. And here's the processes of how, and you can access that from your device and you can see the right processes. You can see the mistakes that have been made. You can see these. Is that part of the solution here? I mean, I just thought of that as we were talking here.
Honestly, I think that's a great point. And to expand on that too, I never thought about that, but I think also to expand on that is kids are so technologically advanced. Like, even though they might not
Unbelievable.
be as outgoing or as, wanting to work 50 hours a week, they're so technologically advanced. And I think if we can digitize some of those stuff like you were saying, I think that would be awesome. And then also let them know that the skills that they already have
Uh,
would blow a lot of people out of the water in this industry, I think. I mean, if there's a kid on Instagram that has been posting fitness content and has hundreds of thousands of followers, he knows how to get hundreds of thousands of followers, right?
exactly.
Hey, kid, come to the manufacturing industry and
Yeah.
get this company 100,000 followers.
Yeah.
Or you're really good at video games and your dexterity is really good, or something like that, like programming or doing inspection stuff or building things, like showing them that the skills that they currently have through, I think what you're saying, like digitizing some of this stuff and the things that some people have been through and all that. I think that could really be something good. I also think too, even just like what you're doing with the podcast and what I'm trying to do and what Mavens in Manufacturing is trying to do, we're kind of putting stories out there for people to hear, to connect with, to hopefully be
Yeah.
like, oh, hey Shae, I saw that Haley Hupt was on your thing. I really like her story. I'm 17 years old. I have something similar. Could you put me in contact with her? And then boom, you have a mentorship.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I love that idea too. I really do. And it blows my mind. I have to remember to start mentioning TikTok in my intros uh, because the amount of young people that are following the Manufacturing Culture podcast on TikTok far outweighs any other demographic. Like 18 to
No
24-year
way.
old is my biggest demographic on TikTok, which is phenomenal. I love
That's
it, right?
fantastic. Yeah.
Well, so that just means I need to bring more young people to the table to start talking about things, right? And so student journeys, things of that nature, that'll come in October, hopefully with some interviews at IMTS at the student summit and things of that nature. But they are on TikTok. They're not on Facebook, right? When I look at my demographics on Facebook, it's like 45 to 60 years old
Yeah.
that are following me, right?
Right,
And
right.
Instagram is like me. It's the Gen Xers and maybe the older millennials. TikTok's where it's at. I actually just was on Snapchat the other day, and I'm actually considering starting a Snapchat channel because that's where my daughter and all of her friends are, right? And they're 13 years old and they're looking for those influencers. They're looking for those role models. And they don't care what industry those people are in, but if they say something that resonates with them. So I think that you're absolutely right. We just have to put it where they are and show them. So Shae, I might use clips from this episode as my first Snapchat for the Manufacturing Culture podcast. Maybe we'll
Woo!
try that out and we'll see how
Yeah.
Shae Eichele and the Manufacturing Culture podcast does with a younger generation on Snapchat. Why not? What can
Why
hurt,
not?
right?
And that is awesome. I'm really glad that you're getting that kind of return on TikTok. That's awesome to hear. I made a bet with one of my cheerleaders when TikTok first came out. They were like checking their TikTok on water break, and I was like, "We're done with TikTok. Everybody, put your phones down." I went all coach mode on them, right? And they were like, "Coach Shae, you're gonna get a TikTok one day," and I'm like, "No, I'm not." And I am like one of those people that if I say I'm not gonna do something, I'm like, I'm not doing it. And so lately I've been like, I think I need to write an apology to like that. Like, okay, guys, will you accept my unbanning of TikTok? So
Yeah.
because I did create one for Manufacturing Muscle and I started posting some stuff on it, but I just uh I still wasn't like in love with the platform. And if I don't
No.
like love and understand the platform, I feel like that's my shortcoming. I want to love the platform and know the platform more before I start posting on it. So I think I started posting a little prematurely on there, but that's great to know that you're having that kind of impact and getting that kind of
Yeah.
age demographic, because that definitely, motivates me to get over my TikTok ban
Do it.
and just get on it and
Absolutely
do it.
do it. Shae, March is Women's Month. This is Strong Women in Manufacturing theme month for the Manufacturing Culture podcast. Um, you've been a powerhouse of a woman. You've been mentored by really amazing women, from Haley to Tiffany, and your entire group and circle of strong women. Breaking it down to being a woman in this industry, what has that experience been like?
I always feel like I don't have a good answer for this question. To me, it's no different. And
Okay.
I think people want more than that. I think people want me to say it's been tough. I think people want me to say I have challenges and being a woman, but I just haven't. And I say that very proudly. I've
Yeah.
worked with a lot of great men and women in the industry. When I walk into a room and I tell people this, and I've been like this since I was a gymnast or around family, I got all boy cousins and whatever. If you want to be treated differently, then you'll act differently. But if you walk in with the confidence in yourself, which takes time to build up, I'm not the most confident in myself either when it comes to rooms, and there's a lot of really smart people in there. But then I just turn on my listening ears, and you don't always have to have the answer to everything. And I think I've just had a really great experience being a woman in the industry. And my marketing manager, Scott Mazon, and my boss and I, when I got into the industry, him and I had a very real conversation about what my identity was going to look like in manufacturing. And I told him this is what I wanted. This is what I want it to look like, and it perfectly aligned with what he wanted it to look like. And we've stayed very consistent with that. And I'm fortunate enough to say I've gotten a lot of respect for that. And it's been great. In my opinion, it's been awesome.
And just to say, I didn't ask this searching for an
Oh yeah, no,
because
no. I think
uh,
yeah.
I honestly just, I love to learn from people. I love to hear people's stories, and some people have had rougher times. Some people haven't, right? Based on skin color or gender or whatever in this industry. So I do love that you haven't faced those challenges, because that's phenomenal. That means that there is growth, right? And there
Yeah.
is progress being made, and all of those things. I wasn't fishing for any
Oh, no,
answer.
no, no. I was more yeah, no, no, I should have phrased my response a little bit differently. We had the reason I referenced that most I feel like people want me to answer with something more was because Haley, Rachel Marshall, and I did a Christmas episode for Manufacturing Muscle, and we got a question about how do you deal with being a woman in manufacturing? How do you deal working with men? And how do you feel being questioned? And like we got that question like 4 or 5 times, and I'm like, from different people. And
Interesting.
so it was interesting. And I'm certainly not saying that there's not, I know that, like you said, based on whether you're a female or your skin color, maybe you're having some challenges in manufacturing. And I really hope that those get resolved and that manufacturing can really 100% move past that all the way one day. Um, but yeah, it's really been a good experience. I will say too, for me, sometimes it's perception. Uh, some people are like, well, if I walk into a room and they ask me, put me on the spot about this, that makes me feel like, it's because I'm a woman that they're asking me that. And for me, when I hear that, it's okay. I'm going to get questioned because I'm a woman. I'm going to prove them wrong, right? I'm
Yeah,
going to prove them wrong, or I'm going to say, you know what? I don't know the answer. Can you teach me about that?
sure,
And uh, and I'm young too. People in the industry, they're going to test the young people. They're going to test the women. They're going to test the people, and they want people to earn their stripes. And I get that. I get it to an extent. Obviously, if it's overly done,
sure.
not a professional manner, then there needs to be a line drawn. But I always take those opportunities as times to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to prove you wrong. Or I take it as an opportunity to say, you're right. I don't know that. Can you teach me about it? So I know
I
next time.
love it. I love it. And I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think since I've known you, and I haven't known you more than I think a year at this point, maybe 9 months even. I mean, it hasn't been a super long time. Um, where we've actually conversed, not like
Yeah.
keyboard warrior chatting or whatever. um, but you, what I've known about you is you are very open to new information. You've been very you're curious, and I think that might lend to your experience as well, right? Because you're just out there asking questions, and it's you're asking questions on LinkedIn, you're asking questions on your podcast, you're asking questions about the industry in general for your own edification, for edification of others. I think that might lend to some of that experience for you as well. I may be off base, I have no idea.
No, no, I think you're totally right. I mean, to me, it's all about learning. And I know I'm not always going to have the answer, but if when I don't have the answer, I ask the question, then I'm going to get the answer. Now I have that answer for then the next time I don't have to ask that, and there'll be another opportunity for me to learn something else. And
Yeah,
so my parents really ingrained that in me, and they always said, uh, listen with your ears and close your mouth sometimes, right? And so, and they said it in a much nicer way. I'm saying it in a more harsh way. Um, but sometimes you have to do that. And I think that has helped me. Um, in, I tell people this all the time. I've only been in the industry for 3 years. So, I know nothing, right? But the stuff that I have learned, I've learned from asking questions, doing my own research, calling my dad and asking him questions, calling mentors, talking to Scott, talking to Bob and Jim Haggerty. I've been sitting in on some automation sales meetings, and even just been learning new terminology and seeing cost spreadsheets and things like that, trying to expose myself to different things. And anytime that you do that, you're opening yourself up for an opportunity to learn. And
I love it.
learning and being curious has helped me a lot so far. And I just plan to continue to do that until it stops helping,
Do it. Do it. So, with your 3 year journey and your unique perspective in this industry, right? What are some of the future trends that you're most excited about in this industry? I mean, you have 4 groups in the HEH group. You get exposure to a lot of different things that people may not throughout the industry. What are you most excited about?
So one thing that I'm recently really excited about, I love automation. I might not know the ins and outs of it, but I love the idea of automating processes and making things more high tech and making things easier on people and things like that. And I recently had a conversation with Doug Woods, the president of AMT, I'm going to be releasing an episode with him in April. And
Oh,
he
awesome.
talked, that I could talk about that in a little bit, but um, he had talked to me all about automation and problems and solutions. And if your company is not always trying to find, even if it's not a problem, but it's something that can be improved and trying to find a competitive edge to be better than the next company, then you're doing great things. And so
Yeah,
trying to help our customers do that, I'm very excited about. Find Hopefully I can get to a spot eventually in the HEH group where I have the power to do that internally and try to find different things that we could do to elevate not only our internal but our internal people, but the way that we interact with customers and the products and services we can offer our customers. And I'm really excited about trying to implement high levels of technology into shops and watching them, helping them solve problems through automation. So that's something that I'm really excited about. On the HEH group side, we have a lot of events coming up. I love doing those events in terms of the future of manufacturing. I'm really excited about young people being in manufacturing, and I'm really excited about the joining force of marketing and sales. So I've been
Yeah.
like researching this a little bit more, and I'm learning a lot about this in my MBA program. That people in the buyer's journey nowadays, people are 70% through the buyer's journey before they even reach a salesperson. They already know what they want by the time they reach a salesperson. So
Yep.
I'm really excited about watching the social media space grow. I'm really excited about watching AI grow into different ways that it's helping people utilize their different types of marketing strategies and things like that. I'm excited. I'm really excited about just the joining force of sales and marketing. Like, hey, we're one thing. Like, you're not going to blame sales, isn't going to blame marketing anymore. Marketing's not going to blame sales anymore. We are going to work together to figure out a way to be in that customer's mind, in front of their face, and seeing all the tools that are now generated to us to be able to do that. I'm very excited about as well. That was a lot of things, but
Awesome. No, I asked the question again. I wouldn't ask if I didn't want you to give as long of a winded answer as you could. So, Shae, finally, as we wrap up here, what haven't I asked you that you want to talk to us about? What message would you like to leave with our listeners that we may not have touched on already?
oh my gosh, I feel like we've covered so much. I think someone asked me this the other day, and I think I kind of want to just reiterate the response that if the one thing I want anybody to take away after listening to is some type of interview that I'm in or whatever I'm talking about is give somebody an opportunity and give somebody a chance. And there's going to be some good things that come from it. Give these students a chance, give the education system a chance,
I
try
love
and
it.
crack into it, give that woman a
I
chance,
absolutely love it.
and just open your mind to possibilities, whether you're in high school or you're in manufacturing trying to get more people in the door. Just you never know what somebody's going through, and just try and give somebody a chance. It might surprise you.
I love it. I love it. Shae, thank you so much for being on. This was an absolute blast. I can't wait for us to do another one. I don't know if it'll be on yours or on mine, but we'll make it happen sometime soon.
Yeah, Jim, thank you so much for having me again. I love doing stuff like this, and you're always a pleasure to talk to. So thank you so much, and I hope your listeners enjoyed the episode.
Yeah, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap on another, and dare I say, incredible episode of the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. Today, we had the privilege of diving into the world of Shae Eichele, who's a true inspiration in the manufacturing industry. Shae shared her remarkable journey, highlighting her resilience, her passion, her dedication that have propelled her to where she is today. We explored challenges and opportunities in the manufacturing sector. We looked at the impactful role that the HEH group and manufacturing muscle are having on the industry. Remember, you can continue this conversation and dive deeper into the world of manufacturing by visiting us at themanufacturingculturepodcast.com. Connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, soon to be Snapchat, to stay updated on our latest episodes and join our vibrant community of manufacturing enthusiasts. If Shae's story has inspired you, or if you've gained valuable insights from our discussion, we encourage you to share this episode with your friends, your colleagues, your grandma, anyone who believes in the power of manufacturing to change lives and communities. Your support means everything to us. And by sharing, you help spread this message of innovation and resilience and the pivotal role that manufacturing has in this industry and the pivotal role that strong women have in the manufacturing industry. Lastly, if you've enjoyed today's episode, take a moment to rate and review the show on whatever platform that you're listening or watching this on right now. Your feedback helps me continue to bring more stories like Shae to you, but it also helps rocket us up the charts so more people find us, and then more people listen, and we build a bigger community, and it's great for everybody. So stay tuned for more episodes that celebrate this industry's achievements, challenges, and our future. Here's to building strength in manufacturing and the communities we serve. See you next time on the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Keep making things. Bye.